Good morning, speedrunning fans. Welcome to the final round matchup in round 4 of this 100% Super Metroid qualifying 100% tournament between sloaters27 and Osse101. My name is Professor School, and I am here today with...
Me, Sefi, Antinomy. I have too many names. Just one is fine, whichever one.
Wasn't sure what to introduce you as. Too many names, Sefi, but Sefi works, I guess, yeah?
Yeah, that's fine enough for me. How are you doing, Prof?
Doing really well this morning. How about you, Sefi?
Good. I just realized that I literally just asked you that question like less than 2 minutes ago. For speed game, we have to let everyone know exactly that we are all doing well and hype about this really exciting matchup that we have.
Yeah, I'm hyped for this matchup. I'm really excited. I was not originally scheduled to come in here, but was able to pinch hit in the last minute for another one of our comms. So we wish them well and hope that they're on the mend. But in the meantime, I am stoked for this matchup between Osse101 and sloaters27. They have some blazing fast times right now. Isn't that right, Sefi?
Yeah, I just wanted to check with Ossie right before the race, and he ended up filling us in with the info that he currently has a 118.34 PB, and Sloaters, I am certain he has a 116.41.
Oof, those are very fast times. So, and with Ossie specifically, we were just talking about this a moment ago, Sefi and I. This is a runner who really sort of broke down a bunch of walls in Super Metroid in that the multi-category tournament, and then became the second person in history to run a sub 1 hour reverse boss order. So I would not be surprised by any time that Osse101 posts today. I think we have a really competitive matchup up ahead of us.
Yeah, that's correct. Again, just picking up off on what you said about breaking down the walls in Super Metroid speedrunning. He was also the one to win the Prodigy tournament that we held last year in March, going through April or May. Can't really remember how long it went for. But that was also an exciting time. He was kind of somewhat a newcomer, but again, I do like. I think he also competed in the first SG Live tournament that they held. I can't remember what that category was. I'm pretty sure it might have been Rando, and he went off against Kip, and that was also a pretty hype matchup. Sloaters, of course, he is a household name to the Super Metroid speedrunning community. A Mega Man X and Super Mario World aficionado, honestly. He has, I'm willing to say that he has like top 10 times in almost every category, if anything.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. 5th in RBO, 3rd in GT Classic, 3rd in GT Space Time, 5th in low percent ice, 9th in speed, 7th in PRKD, and 8th in 100%. So absolutely a formidable opponent for anyone in this tournament.
Yeah, and none of these runners right now that we have on screen are ones to sleep on. They all show a lot of promise and a lot of dedication to the games that they run. If it's not, Aussie with randomizers, SMC3, as SpeedGaming might be familiar with, or Sloaters with any percent, he is super close to getting that 41 and any percent as well. But right now he's taking the time to enjoy himself a little competition in these 4 tournaments that we have going on.
That's right. So here we go. The runners are onto the planet Zebus here, getting their way off Siri Station in quick order, and now in almost perfect sync, making that drop down the parlor. Of course, Ossie on the left using that moonfall technique. Sloaters is one of those few top runners that opts to play without the moonwalk on, but just with his sheer movement capabilities is going to be able to make up most of that time in other places of the run.
Yeah, he has some really hot takes about Moonwalk, but that's fine. I mean, I forgive him. He's Floaters after all.
Sephi, what's more controversial, playing without Moonwalk or saving the animals?
I'm pretty sure, I guess for the general public, it's really going to be about saving and killing the animals. Because by now, a lot of people just kind of recognize that Moonfall is a thing. But either way, I mean, I'm not opposed to people that don't want to play with Moonwalk because I know sloaters can. I've seen him do it before.
Mhm.
But just that stubbornness and that bold decision to not do it, that's something you really have to admire, I feel.
Absolutely, and those decisions don't come lightly or arbitrarily either, right? I mean, if you've ever played low percent ice, for example, you know that sometimes having Moonwalk on can get really trolly in certain places, like the Ridley fight, and so these are strategic decisions that these runners are making oftentimes when they want to use certain techniques or not.
What's when you were starting off running this game, what's like some of the best advice that you probably heard and that you still kind of hold true to your heart today?
I would say that even though I had been hanging out in streams like Zosts and Zennies and watching them blaze fast times with complicated strats, the best advice that I've ever gotten that continues to ring true to me in a number of different ways is actually from Kip, who essentially gave me the idea of keeping it simple, right? Cutting out the stuff that is not consistent, being true to yourself, being honest with yourself about what you actually are good at, eliminating the stuff that's more complicated, and relying on consistency. So that's definitely been a huge part of my runs in the last year since I joined this community.
That's actually why I asked, because that's also kind of what I hold true. I'm a huge advocate for doing things as simply as you can,
Mm-hmm.
less number of inputs to go through the rooms as fast as you can.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the notion that you can save 10 frames, but perhaps punish yourself if you fail on that trick by losing a full second is maybe not worth the risk reward, right? Compared to going for something a little bit simpler but much more consistent, which, for example, I think is something that Behemoth is very well known for, right? It's just that incredible consistency throughout every part of the run.
Yeah, precisely. And I feel like being able to behold Sloaters in a tournament setting and obviously running competitive times in any category that he runs, you can also get that from him, because I feel like he stands out when it comes to movement. His execution is just so darn good, and his backups, he has a quick reaction to that as well. So I expect nothing less from Slotus's movement. I feel like Osse might be able to sneak in some really special tech, as we saw before we got this race started, because I saw that he was trying to farm like some enemies on the ceiling, escaping sports supers, and
I
going.
saw that too. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, to each their own, because although I'm a huge advocate for simple strats and such, I will kind of always go for like the riskier route just for the sake of my own fun. So I really hope that Osse is able to like show us something new that we haven't seen.
Absolutely. Well, so here we go. The runners are coming up on this early supers, and this is where the route divergence really takes place from some of the other categories that you might see in Super Metroid. Pretty much everyone is going to come and grab this first pack of supers, but now in 100%, you're going to see the first time we're going into this back side of that early supers room to pick up this reserve tank and these 2 missile packs. What else can we expect today in terms of some of the major differences in 100%? Sephi?
I know that. Well, I don't know if we are to expect this from Osse. I know Sloaters for sure is going to be going for early grapple though, just because that's just the less complicated route. But Osse, I mean, as you know, you mentioned it earlier that he grinded for a sub-hour RBO, the second person to do so. And to do that, to accomplish that, you have to take the more complicated Moon Dance route. So I kind of wonder if Osse is going to be doing some late grapple.
Yeah, we'll have to see. I did take a look at some of Ossie's old PBs and from 5 and 7 months ago when he was still above the 120 time. And it looked like it was early grapple back then, from what I remember. But I think certainly, as you suggested, with the kind of tech that we might expect from Osse101, anything is really possible at this point.
Right. But that's just going off of what the runners might do. Either way, if you're not familiar with 100%, there's a lot of it's a lot more. There's more rooms that you have to kind of execute. Is okay. So here's the thing about Hundo that might seem kind of weird to put it this way, but I kind of always considered it that from the moment that you start this run, you are always going to be losing time, like to any other route, because some of these rooms, a lot of people have not been, or I just have not put in the time to familiarize themselves with. I mean, I don't know how different you feel, Hundo, as opposed to any percent, Prof.
Well, I'll tell you that for me, the biggest thing about 100%, taking this with a grain of salt, because I've only been running any percent for 7 months, and I've only been running Hundo for about 1 month. But in my experience, it is an absolute marathon, and every single room is part of this larger grind. And the focus is not necessarily perfect execution in every room. Maybe you are losing time, as exactly as you said. It's really about trying to string together a much longer, consistent run. And so for that reason, I find 100% to be incredibly challenging compared to any percent.
Yeah, especially when you're pushing for those top times. That's because I feel like it's kind of telling that that first place and second place are like running 113s. Meanwhile, Floaters, who is also a really good runner, has like a 116, is like 3 minutes behind.
Yeah, and folks, that 3 minutes may not seem like a lot over the course of an 80-minute run or so, but the sort of optimization that you do see for those 113 and 114 runners is incrementally progressive, but it is so much harder to start grinding down those room times at that consistent level. So we're talking so much great stuff about these runners. Let's go ahead and remember to give them a follow as well if you have not already. We're going to be seeing a great matchup today from these two. So please go ahead and share some love with them.
I saw that Aussie was attempting for a lagless, or attempting to reduce the lag on this grade fight, but he ended up getting the stand-up glitch, which Sloaters executed. I just call that the stand-up glitch because it's not often that you see Kraid stand up during this fight. Usually you just get the first phase kill, but good recovery nonetheless, Aussie.
Yeah, for sure. I know that there's a couple different ways that people have tried to reduce lag in that Kraid fight by using Samus's iframes. Most recently, I don't know if you saw this, Sephi, but Hodarubi actually came up with a standardized setup that I think Zost is already incorporating into his runs, and I think a couple other people have as well. And it seems like a very consistent way to get that lag down about a full second. So we'll see if a lot of more people start to pick that up in the near future.
Yeah, I think I heard about that, and that's good that people are trying that out. Obviously, Hodarubi always want to experiment, with new ways to save time, if at least, by frames, but still something.
Yeah, and Osse actually confirming here in the chat, doing a little bit of multitasking, that they were going for that lagless setup on Kraid.
And it's stuff like that I'm talking about, because like I know that Sloaters knows his way around the game, and again, he knows the ins and outs of this game, like in terms of physics, the rooms, how Samus handles with all the items, or like very little items, and like Osse, I'm pretty sure he's been practicing a lot more, and just been trying to find ways to find or to save time consistently, even with like the smallest time saves, because they all really just kind of add up.
Hmm.
You can do one small thing and save yourself like 10 frames in one room and then 10 frames in another room. You keep doing that, and eventually, you'll have yourself saved a whole second.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's almost 350 rooms. I know it's a little different depending on the routing that you choose, but when you're talking about 350 rooms, 5, 10 frames in every one, that sure does add up in a hurry. Let me just take a second here, address a couple questions from chat. We have some people asking about what this bracket is shaping up like right now. We are down to the final 8 after today. We're looking forward to some great matchups. Chinese Zenny and Hoda Ruby is one. Behemoth and Mr. Guy Average. Oats and Goats versus a real cutie should be a real barn burner. And the winner of today's matchup between Sloaters and Osse101 is actually going to have the privilege of going up against the, I think, fairly well-known Zost. So that should be another great matchup coming up in the semifinals.
All right, and yeah, right now we're gonna see Sloaters pick up Speed Booster and Wave a minute after, and then from there on we'll see after Aussie follows suit if he's gonna go down to Rock. Maybe he hasn't switched up his route at all and is just sticking to doing early grapple anyway.
Well, what do you think about that? Sefi, do you like seeing the route divergences? Or do you think maybe it's a little bit more exciting to watch the two people run the same route and go head to head like that?
Oh, that is such a good question, because I mean, I know I do like seeing just a really good matchup, just kind of head to head. No, like no one doing anything crazy, switching up the routes or anything. Just we know where everyone is, and we always are in the know of like who's ahead and who isn't. But I think the real excitement is in an early grapple and a late grapple race, because I think like for me, one of my favorite races was the Becky versus Tony race.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Only because that sync up, once they were going up the Norfair elevator on their way to pick up X-Ray, was one of the most exciting moments that I've seen. And I guess you could pretty much know 100% race to be like,
Mm-hmm.
just because of that sync. You finally find out like, oh, is this person ahead? Is this person ahead? Or this could have gone wrong, and maybe you're convinced that this person is actually really losing and falling behind or something.
Yeah, absolutely. And that particular race that you were referring to, that sync up moment was hype. Absolutely. That was one of the more exciting moments of the entire tournament so far, for sure.
So it just becomes like a guessing game, that you know maybe some runners might have an idea, but even then you're not 100% sure, because a lot of there's a lot of strats that people are going to be doing differently, and while they might be looking fast, they're not they might not always be consistent. Also, Slaughter is here with the Crockemeyer fight. I don't know how you feel about Croc in Hundo now that you've had the chance to.
I'll tell you how I feel about Croc and Hundo, Sefi. This is one of the absolute main reasons why I decided to run late Croc. I want to come into that Croc fight with a full beam combo, get one shot, and just get out of that room. I do not want to be sitting through 8 swipes worth of RNG. What do you think? I know you run that early grapple route, but oh god, look at that! And Croc trolling Sloaters. He thought the fight was over, and still had to come back and give another shot to Croc. Yeah, what do you think about Croc here?
It's the worst. It's the worst. I feel, and I'm pretty sure anyone could say the same thing, because I hear it all across the community, is that everyone literally has the worst Croc fights in the community. Like I've said it before, I've heard other runners say that, complaining about, oh, I have the worst Croc fights. He never gives me, good RNG, and it's honestly worse than Fantoon RNG. So I do have to give it up for obviously Aussie right now, as we see doing a late grapple. So there's the route divergence. We'll see how that ends up looking like. But I'm glad that you do late grapple so that you don't have to pull your hair out during that fight.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's the croc fight, it's the RNG, and honestly, I know some people really love grapple, and there are some. I mean, you and MGA and a couple of those other early grapple runners really have some beautiful strats. But for me, trying to figure out how to work grapple, it just I know grapple is attached to Samus, but for me, it feels like the most detached item in the game. I have such a hard time sort of reining that in and getting control over that item. So for me, the longer I can put it off, the better. Even though I have to deal with that ice clip and that wrecked ship energy issue, which we'll talk about a little bit more here with Osse and their 3 tanks. But yeah, for me, if I can put it off, I would much rather do that.
Yeah, I don't blame you. Again, that's just kind of sticking to your mantra about just keeping it simple.
Yeah. Beautiful red tower there from Osse, making work of that early ice that comes together with this late croc route. And we'll be making their way up to wrecked ship while we see sloaters progress through the backside of the item collection here around croc.
Either way, I will say though that Sloaters did have a fairly decent time coming out of that croc fight, so he wasn't really trolled as much, even though he did get feigned by that. Oh, you might think that I'm dead, Sloaters, but I'm not. So I'm gonna take a one step forward. He's still making a pretty good time because anything that's like an 18-4x grapple collect is really good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Also, another thing that I want to just kind of point out is that as you start getting into, approaching top 10 times, you don't see a lot of runners running early grapple as often. So I know that MGA, another participant of this tournament, has voiced out that it's kind of hard to really see really good runners run this early grapple and then kind of have an idea of like what's a good time. And I'm just glad that at least we had the chance to see someone like, well, both Kip and MGA, battle it out and show us what really good movement is and strats as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That was, we're talking about, Kip and MGA is one of those, for me, one of the highlights of this tournament in terms of matches that we've been sort of had the pleasure to see. That's another one of those matchups like this where, maybe Osse, you talked about Seffi's going to bring in some interesting tech, maybe some new ideas that are a little bit more risky, whereas Sloaters is going to be strong and consistent throughout. I think that was much the same story that we got in that Kip MGA matchup, right? MGA trying to push some really, really top times right now with some aggressive movement. And Kip actually saying on his own stream recently that his plan for that match was to actually cut out that difficult stuff, go for something consistent, and rely on that, which I think was a fantastic game plan. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like just looking at the numbers, and I'm just going off of this race alone because I feel like it would apply to the MGA and Kip race as well, is that for Sloaters, it makes sense for him to pretty much play consistent, and for Osse and MGA alike to pretty much play a little bit more risky because, again, just looking at the numbers, Sloaters and Kip were favored. They everyone knows what they're capable of. They have that consistent movement. I pretty much expect Osse and runners like MJ to kind of just play risky, and it's great when it pays off.
Mm-hmm.
Also, beautiful fan tune for Osse.
Yeah, just coming up a couple missiles short, I think, on that first Doppler to make it too risky to try to put that super in the second round. But still, good pattern and good execution, right? Looks like a mid-fast. So I certainly could have been punished more by Fantoon for having to go to the third round. But Osse with looks like pretty good health here and really nice drops on the ammo is going to be able to hopefully make it through the front side of wrecked ship without much of a problem.
Yeah, it's always good to survive the Fantoon fight, although you're still not yet in the clear until you pick up that wrecked ship E-tank.
Yeah, absolutely. So we talked about that a little earlier. I think we can get into maybe some of the details now that we see this route divergence.
Yeah.
So as you can see on the left, right, Ozzy has those just the 3 E-tanks, Sloaters with 4 as he makes his way into wrecked ship. So what do you think are the real differences and trials that go into running this late croc route for Ozzy here?
Really, I know a lot of people put a lot of emphasis on ice clip, which I feel is pretty important. It might not necessarily be the hardest thing in the world anymore, given that there's a lot more normalized setups for the ice clip.
Mhm.
But you can also play the wreck ship E tank fairly safe by unequipping, which I doubt Aussie's gonna try to go for. But you can unequip high jump boots and just kind of run and jump. Ooh, nice. Aussie make it to the spiky room of death.
Yeah, we always like to see
Uh,
that our runners don't get trapped, KO'd through one of those platforms that can do 100 damage every time they touch Samus, even with Varia on.
yeah, correct. It gets really, really suspicious. He's gonna go for the bomb jump, which is also not as scary. Now that I see runners, even top runners, not going for the single bomb jump over the to the E tank. Now you see them taking their time, which I feel is for the better because there's time save elsewhere. So really, for wreck ship, you can really just play it as safe as you can, especially in a tournament setting. I feel just so that you can get your run in. But you also do not want to be taking way too much damage, which I feel like Aussie is kind of going for, playing that really safe and clean and smooth reverse spiky room of death because um you do need to maintain all of your energy, or at least close to all of your energy, in order to have enough to spark through the gauntlet.
Yeah, that's right. Certainly don't want to have to be stopping at the ship something like 15 to 16 seconds optimally if you go to stop at the ship to refill. You really want to make sure that you can get through the top side of wrecked ship here without having to do anything like that. In the meantime, Sloaters, while we're describing some of the dangers of wrecked ship with one less E-tank, showing us what an absolutely nearly flawless Fantoon fight looks like. Absolutely smoking Fantoon, and now already on to this super collection and the rest of the item clears here in wrecked ship.
Yeah, Slotus is gonna, after he picks up this wreck ship E tank, he does have that extra E tank to work with, meaning he could, not that I expect him to mess up a lot of rooms, but he can take a lot of damage and still be fine without having to need the wreck ship refill, or excuse me, the landing site refill.
Right. Well, so let me ask you this, Sephi. You actually run the early grapple route, so you're comfortable having this extra E tank. What is your approach to the post Fantoon wrecked ship? Do you go sort of more brazen, knowing that you have all that extra energy? Are there things that you can do with that extra energy to speed up wrecked ship?
Um, hmm. I feel like I for sure I do feel that extra sense of security to go for a little bit more riskier strats. But I'm pretty sure it's nothing out of the ordinary that a top runner would go for anyway.
Mhm.
Um, because you'll see here that Sloater is going to go for a left side wreck ship to conserve energy, and that's honestly just because why not? I mean, he does that for old route. Uh, I do go for the ballistic strat, and
Mhm.
that's really more. If you miss that strat up, you can lose a lot of time. But at the very least, I don't feel like I'm going to be losing a lot of energy as well. Having a tank, like for example, all right. So here we see Slaughter is going for a obviously textbook left side attic. But if you drop a stutter, or if you don't get that tap in, you risk bumping into the key hunter, and you're going to take a lot of damage.
Yeah, that's really
But
going to
when
sort of screw up the entire room for you as well, as far as timing goes, right?
right, and obviously, like Slaughter's is incredibly skilled. Um, I also feel like I can commit to taking all this spark damage and forcing my way through in the famous words of Oates, put me through these work robots. But I think the real killer for me is this reverse, because you see what Slotus does. He bumped into that key hunter for just to make sure to have the iframes to run through the first and the little electricity on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
As pretty much as simple as you can, without having a Doppler or and kill all those key hunters. So that's also the beauty of that extra E tank from early grapple, is that you can tank one key hunter hit and still be fine, or even two, and just kind of have everything else be phenomenal.
Yeah, and
Either
for
way,
sure, and just to sort of point out exactly what Steffi's saying, I actually do go for that missile Doppler strat. You see a lot of top runners doing that. Bunking those key hunters, it's even with Varion, it's a little bit better, but the health coming through with only 4 E tanks, you really want to make sure that you have enough. Here for the spark that you see Osse just executing up to the Criteria power bombs, and in this often kind of tricky Criteria power bombs room, where if you mess up the entry, you can take a lot of damage in this room very, very quickly, and that can really hurt your chances to get through Gauntlet unscathed.
I will say though, Aussie has a beautiful amount of energy going in though, to set up for this Gauntlet Spark. This might put him in the right position for the back Gauntlet Spark, but I guess he's just gonna go for it. There's no need to risk it, because I have seen some deaths where you get grabbed by the Yapping Maw
Mm-hmm.
and then dragged down into the acid, and yeah, that's
Yeah, I think that refill was actually necessary. You ideally need somewhere in the range of 230 to 235. You can shorten that up just a little bit by moving left on that spark, but I think he was sitting at about 219 there was Aussie, and yeah, the last thing you want is to come up, one tile short, get grabbed by a Yapping Maw while you're waiting for your power bomb to go off. That would be bad news.
This is a really good gravity time for sloaters, by the way. Anything that's like a 30 is incredible pace. Potentially a high 115 but just rest assured that he is running a 116 right now. And I guess my gauge to kind of compare these runners, if you want to do that, just to play that guessing game, is that you can always account for Aussie to be anywhere from, like, in a way, well, no, how about this? You'll see Sloaters reach wherever Aussie is right now in Green Brinstar, or up until the sync up over going up the elevator in Norfair. You can expect Sloaters to show up there about like 3 minutes earlier or so, or later, excuse me. All right. Now we're gonna see Sloaters set up. None of them had to unequip Spazer, obviously, which is a good thing, because having to unequip Spazer makes for a little bit more trickier of a setup to do that wraparound shot over to
Mm-hmm.
Gauntlet.
Yeah, pretty impressive stuff from both of our runners today, both Aussie and Sloaters. I gotta say, I'm not as familiar with sort of the benchmarks for the top times for the late grapple route, just because I'm not running anywhere near those times right now. But I'd say that Aussie's probably pretty close to 117 pace right now. So we're definitely getting what should be a very competitive matchup throughout here, where any sort of hiccups along the way is going to open the door for that gap to close even further.
Honestly, even just being on PB pace alone in a race setting, I would say it still feels pretty good, especially going up against someone like Sloater. So Aussie is really doing his thing and going all out. So here's hoping that he could Keep that up. Oh, sloaters with the accidental torque right before the elevator. But now entering Greenburn Star.
Looks like we're going to get a Mission Impossible attempt here from Osse. Doesn't look like they got that quick drop, so they'll have to make their way around the slow way here and then back into the pink Brinstar cleanup. Not a big deal, though. Just a couple seconds.
Do you go for Mission Impossible, Prof?
I do, actually. The sort of the proudest moment I've had in this tournament so far was hitting Mission Impossible back-to-back in 2 qualifiers coming into it. So that was really cool. In fact, I did it once when I was actually on the main page stream, and I think I impressed a couple people. So yeah, always happy to get something like that and justify the otherwise poor times that I'm running with 1 or 2 cool tricks.
Yeah, it's just stuff like that that makes it appealing to watch a 100% run. Because time and time again in any percent run, you pretty much see that like everything kind of standardized. But there's something about, for me at least, 100% that feels refreshing. And you kind of just get to see it in like small, although they might not seem like the biggest deal, I feel for me that Mission Impossible is still a pretty cool strat. Oh, nice. Beautiful entry to Big Pink for Sloaters. It's looking really smooth.
Yeah, we're getting to see all the best stuff right now from our runners. That nice entry from Sloaters. We had Mission Impossible attempt, obviously from Osse, but then right on the back side of that, Osse does that beautiful grouping strat for that Big Pink E-Tank next to that wave gate. So yeah, we're getting them pulling out all the stops right now, and it looks like we might even see a Mission Impossible. The quick drop looked good. Sloaters is going to buffer this jump and try to get back up through. No problem whatsoever. Beautiful stuff with the D-boost out of the room as well.
Oh right, also shout out to Osse for demonstrating that that clip out of the charged Chozo statue coming out of Waterway, because he was one of the ones that ended up making a tutorial on how to consistently go for that that clip out of charge, which is it saves you like about a second. It took me like the longest time to ever get used to it though. But then thanks to Osse and another shout out to P-Toil, they made some really good videos on how to execute that consistently.
Yeah, that's right. Was it P-Toil that made that nice image where they actually cropped out some of those blocks so you didn't have to learn the dang thing blind and you could actually see what you were doing?
Yeah, P-Toil was the one that did that, and then Osse was the one that had the video that just pretty much removed everything in general, all the blocks, and all you can see is what Samus is doing.
Yeah, that was really helpful for sure.
So really good references for that. Oh, nice, beautiful stutter 3 for Osse over here in Main Street. Also one of the it's one of the toughest. Surprisingly, stutter 3, like you can stutter 3 tap consistently and still end up missing that.
Yeah, it's a really tight one, and of course consolidating that stutter 3, which because of how quickly you get up there, you are in prime position for that moonfall without getting hit by any of the enemies in that horizontal room. So really nice work here with Osse now going to pick up that Mother Brain tank. Excuse me, the Mother Turtle tank. We'll see Mother Brain later on. And Sloater is popping into chat saying he is minus 22.8 seconds right now. That's you were just talking about it, Sephi. We saw some great motion from Sloaters. Looks like both of our runners might be on or near PB pace. So we really couldn't ask for more in this race right now.
Yeah, stellar movement by both of them. Like again, even even if Osse is behind, once he goes up that Norfair elevator, it still doesn't mean that he didn't put up a good race. He is showing off a lot of neat strats and clean movement in general as well. And also shout outs to Sloaters for confirming that he is for sure on PB pace, because that's a good feeling.
Yeah, we've been treated to some really fantastic stuff from our runners throughout this tournament. This, of course, as I mentioned, being the final round 3 matchup. And the schedule's not up yet, but keep an eye out there on SpeedGaming channels for those final 8 players in our semifinals. I know that sounds a little weird, but our final in this tournament is actually going to be a 4-way match, which should be really exciting. So we'll have that semifinals of 8, and then we'll have that final matchup of 4. How are you thinking about that final 4 matchup? Are you hyped for that, Steffi?
Yeah, actually, I'm not gonna lie, that's news to me. Now that you just mentioned it, I haven't really been keeping up with the news of how this is all gonna play out, but I feel like the organizers and the community in general have been doing a fantastic job of running it.
You see that nice grapple strat there from Sloaters, opting to go for that early Mama Turtle missile pickup. Don't have to worry about any of the timing issues associated with that often harder to grab missile pack, and then go for that really nice wraparound with the grapple. I've seen MGA do that. I think I've seen you do that as well. Isn't that right, Steffi? I think it's maybe the optimal way to go through that room if you have grapple.
Yeah, if you have grapple, that's a strat that I learned from Jack, and I'm pretty sure I saw Static go for it too. But again, it's just kind of, you see a lot of runners doing, or pretty much trying to mimic what the late grapple runners do, and you just kind of take that as that's the strat, just because it also has a spark and it looks fast and all that. But then you have like really, really good, brilliant minds like Jack and Static that are more willing to invest time to experiment with other ways to navigate through a room, and then you get beautiful movement, and you get that grapple. You get more grapple strats, honestly. I'm just going to say that.
Right. And of course, Static, not one of the competitors in this tournament, but like Sloaters, one of those, I think, household names, historically speaking, has been one of the real pillars of the community, building a lot of the strats that people are still using today and a lot of the ideas of movement through some of these rooms.
All right, Osse right here, climbing up for the Dre fight. Hoping for some good RNG. This fight usually tends to be much easier and not as complicated, because you have so many supers to kind of just spam at Drake, as opposed to the limited 1 or 2 if you're lucky in any percent. Look at that 2 spark, and
so nice. Yeah, really, really good stuff.
Also, another beautiful thing that I want to point out. I keep saying beautiful just because I just cannot get over this execution. But a great thing about Hundo, these 2 fights, Florida's Bont, setting up for full halfie. But the great thing about these 2 fights, Batoon and Dragon, is because since you have such an abundance in supers, more often than not, you don't have to stress about having to have such a slow fight. Like if you miss a particle on an X Factor on Batoon, you can quickly recuperate that, following it up with whatever supers you need to, because each particle does the same damage as a super against Batoon.
Yeah, for sure. Much more forgiving when, I think I actually just participated in one of the community any percent races after a month of doing nothing but hundo, and I had to remind myself, okay, you don't have screw attack on here. You don't have 20 or 30 super missiles. You got to really manage your resources. So certainly a little bit more forgiving in that sense is 100%.
Sort of showing off with a pre-Dragon spike suit. But yeah, you're right, Prof. That's a really good spark. That has to be like 2550 left.
Absolutely, absolutely, and even in some rare cases with the right setup, you can get a 2400 there, right? But it really cleans up the backside of this fight. Couple ballistics going into Dragon, a second spark, and nice easy kill with that second spike suit for Sloaters. Absolutely textbook, and a well-behaving Dragon as well. Really, really nice stuff.
And a moment of truth here for Osse.
Here's this ice clip. Let's see what kind of setup Osse uses for this. A couple different ways to go after this. Yeah, so no problem at all. I'll actually take a moment to talk about that. That's not exactly the standard setup that I use, for example. It's just a little bit slower, but what you saw Osse do there may have looked like an accident going over to the right side of that room with the space jump and then coming back. That is actually an intentional setup to standardize your vertical speed going up to that Puyo, and it can really make it easier to time your shot properly, having that standardized vertical speed. So maybe at the cost of 70 or 90 frames, standardizing something that can be such a choke point in the run, like the ice clip, that's really important. So nice to see Osse get through there without any problems.
Yeah. Okay, good. So Sloaters didn't soft lock himself going into Aqueduct, so his run can continue. But yeah, as you mentioned, there's a lot of setups there for the ice clip, which I guess you also pointed out can feel like a choke point for a lot of runners. And it can be, because if you mess that up, you have to reset that room and try again for pretty much a pixel perfect freeze on that Puyo. And when it comes to it, like the pressure, you can feel that pressure, especially if you're on PB pace. But I mean, anything's better to lose a few frames or even at least a second or two with something normalized, and rather than losing your entire run, or even at least like, I don't even know how much it would be for you to reset a room. How much do you lose, like if you get a missed attempt?
Yeah, it's tough. There's a couple decisions you can make there. One is if it fails immediately, it's probably best to just back out of the room and force your way through those two door transitions. So you're talking probably 6 to 8 seconds lost there. There is an option if you have something get a little bit messed up in the middle of the ice clip. You can actually wait for, let's say if you freeze that Puyo early, you can actually wait for it to thaw and then refreeze it. That is an option that I've seen some runners do, but it really just depends on sort of situational happenings. First of all, let me take a second there. Holy smokes! So that room that you just saw Osse run, that plasma room, it is one of the most overhauled rooms in this game in the last few weeks, and we just saw some beautiful execution. Now getting us down into the sub 10-second time for that plasma room. I think that was originally some stuff that Hodarubi had begun experimenting with, and then Cutie and a couple other runners made a couple additions, and now we're seeing some smoking fast times there in that plasma room.
Yeah, that spring ball. Well, shout out to spring ball. Thank you for that, Osse. Yeah, I've heard about that. It's a great strat for that room. The plasma room has always been one of my favorites to just kind of run through. But that one, exceptional work from Behemoth, Zenny, Scotty, Cutie, Hodarubi, and even Tass, which I think it's kind of like a derivative of what Tass would do. just obviously human viable.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a strat that only works with ice, really.
Yeah, that specific one that we saw Osse pull off. Although I will say that Hodarubi has also demonstrated some ways to go through that room without ice. And I think even for those early croc runners that are coming into here without ice, there is some real benefit to be had in terms of how fast you can speed up this room.
So Ossie's going to be exiting Meridia in these last few rooms. Beautiful. that was a nice double D boost. That's also one of the swag strats that that just feels, for me at least, I feel like it validates your run. Like if you get one of those, there's a couple that does that. I think one that's not as important is, but I think you might have noticed in others do in their runs is wall jumping off Crocamire's belly.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's one way to validate your run, and then anything else that you get, like that's movement wise or strat wise, is just you feel really good. Like at the end of a run, you can have like a bad time, or you can barely miss your PB and say, well, you know what? Just like reflect and think, at least I got the double D boost, or at
That's
least I
right.
got this stutter for short charge out of the party zone.
Yeah, I think that's mission impossible for me right now. A little bit easier to execute than some of those others, but always feels good to pull off some of those tricks.
And it might be, I don't know if you share this sentiment with me, but I feel like you might, along with a lot of other runners, is that in Super Metroid, when you execute something, you know, that's to your pleasure, you feel like this huge merit, this huge reward, you know, that you're doing things right, especially in a run, you know.
I do share that sentiment. Yeah, there's something very gratifying, even in the middle of an otherwise frustrating or difficult run. You pull off some of these things, you know you've been working hard on them, and you manage to, especially in a race situation when the pressure's on, and you're in an elimination situation, hitting some of those, gosh, it feels really good. I have to say, both of our runners putting on quite a show for us today, executing some great movement. But I do get the sense that Sloaters is continuing to pull up behind Osse and get closer and closer, which of course is going to be important here with Sloaters still needing to go down to Croc. So the more that Sloaters is able to close the gap going into Lower Norfair, the more ahead he will be when the routes reconverge after Sloaters makes his way down to Croc.
Right, so Aussie just went down the elevator to Lower Norfair. I also want to point out that just to kind of give some sort of a gauge on how far ahead Sloaters is that you're gonna see a lot of runners that are running like a low 117 go down this elevator to Norfair at the 53-minute mark, and Sloaters is like pretty much a whole minute ahead of that 53-minute mark. So it really goes to show that he's having an incredible run, and it's good that he's keeping up with it.
Oh yeah, and Zenny correcting me in the chat. I misspoke there. What I meant was that it's Osse that still needs to go down and deal with Croc. So the more that Sloaters can catch up here, the more an indication of how far ahead Sloaters really will be. Since Osse still is the one that still needs to make the trip down into Croc's lair. Thanks for that catch, Zenny. Always nice to have help from the chat. Keep your comms teams honest.
It was a really quick work of Golden Torizo. Sloater's getting a really great space boost. I'm just gonna borrow that term from the GBA Troid community, just because that's what that feels like. That's the closest you can get to having a super fast space jump with speed booster on through a room. Yeah, that is an incredible time. Slow, just keep it up for sure. And I'm almost positive that Osse could be on a low 118, if not high 117 pace.
Yeah, it looks to me like solid 117 pace at this point, based on my experience with the late croc route here.
That's really good lag reduction strat. See, it's stuff like that. It's just like tiny, small frame savers. Even though you kind of, gap skip that one tile gap. But again, just going for that alone is what counts.
I got a question in chat here about some of the timing differences between these two routes that we're seeing. I think optimally speaking, you have that number 20 seconds thrown around, I think by some optimizations and tests done by folks like Zost, saying that delay of croc can end up being about 20 seconds faster. It depends on a lot of things, right? It depends on croc RNG in the early grapple route. It depends on ice clip and whether or not you need to reset that room. It depends on being able to get that spike suit at croc in late grapple and carry it all the way to X-ray. So there's a lot of different things that can dictate that. But I guess optimally speaking, yeah, you can say that there is a benefit if you execute properly to delaying croc.
Yeah, because the great thing about late grapple is that a lot of those things that you just mentioned are in your control. It just comes down to your execution, and if you can do it. Whereas a lot of times for early grapple, it's so killer that croc RNG having 8 swipes, like you mentioned before. There's nothing you can do. You kind of have to take it. And there's sometimes where you will also kind of have a charge shot not even connect with dealing damage to croc. You just kind of get this really scuffed, messed up hit that just does not push him back whatsoever. So that's also frustrating. So Osse had a really fast Ridley fight.
Yeah, by the time we were even able to commentate on it at all, Osse was already in and out of Ridley. I even missed what their strategy was there. It looks like the super count is really good. I actually missed whether or not Osse used any supers to increase the DPS in that fight. Did you happen to catch that, Sephi?
It was all, nice Hickman Ruby special there for Osse. Osse used all charge shots.
Yeah, that makes sense given the super count there.
Yeah, it's really going to be preference because you kind of just have to go on a whim whether you want to switch to supers or not. And not often do I see a lot of runners switch to supers as well, just because there is supers are just too good to waste. Oh, a little bonk from Sloaters. So yeah, we don't get to see the almost the best mock ball or spring ball strat in the game.
Yeah.
But it's fine.
Yeah, nice job backing it up with the Plower House though.
Yeah.
Let's see how Sloaters chooses to handle this Ridley fight here, starting up with that nice 3 plasma setup. That 4th and 5th shot coming in. Ridley drops down into these pogos, and we'll see whether any supers are going to get used to speed up this fight. It's looking like an all-beam fight here for Sloaters.
Yep, that was most radical there.
Yeah, really clean fight. Nicely done there from Sloaters. And some nice super drops too, so a very healthy super count going into the tail end of this run.
Osse with that mock ball out of the Franker Z. I want to say Franker Face E, but Franker Z missiles. I still want to go back to those run validating strats that I often wonder about. Is because I know not a lot of runners go for it too, just because it's slow if you fail it, but it's just the one that everyone kind of talks about, which almost feels like it's the main event, and it's that setup for reverse slinky. And I know Sloaters goes for it in his run, so expect that. Oh, Sloaters.
Yeah, having a rough go there in Wasteland. Tried to go back and redo the speedball, wasn't able to get it on the second go. Probably end up costing him maybe 3-4 seconds in that room, maybe even a little bit more. So not the most costly error. I do think Sloaters is probably ahead here, but certainly you don't want to be giving up those seconds against a runner like Osse.
Right, yeah. Osse right now is going to pick up this last missile pack at Bubble Mountain, and then we'll be making his way downtown and singing that song with Croc. What would you say is the hardest section in Hundo for you, with your experience and your route?
It's a good question, Sephi. I find that Meridia can be really, really punishing, especially coming from any percent. A lot of lower Norfair, with the exception of having Screw Attack on, feels pretty similar to me, especially being an old route runner. I'm used to having Plasma coming through lower Norfair, but gosh, how technically demanding Meridia is really, really challenging. That, and of course, I would say post Fantune wrecked ship, obviously for late Croc, is scary and very technically demanding. But something about Meridia, there's just so much in there that can go wrong. There's so many little things that you need to do. Going to the Oasis missiles and supers, coming through the main street with that Stutter 3, the ice clip. There's just so much in there that I find technically demanding. How about you?
I mean, I agree for sure, because I shared those same feelings when I got back into Hundo a few weeks ago. And I mean, now I find myself a little bit more consistent with Meridia. Just because, although it is a little bit more difficult, I did find it fun to grind. But to me, I don't know what it is. I think it's the game working against me. I'm just going to blame that, because lower Norfair, I always lose time there consistently. And that's the segment that, honestly, I always have in mind when I say that once you start that timer, you're losing time from the get-go. Because once you hit down on that elevator to lower Norfair, I feel like I've already lost 10 seconds for whatever reason. It's deceptively difficult for me, but it feels so worth it when you execute really well, especially because you cannot, quick kill Ridley. Your game has to be pretty much spot on. Oh, beautiful. I'm pretty sure that room's called the pantry room. Yeah, for Osse.
Yeah, a little unfortunate for Osse, obviously blazing through that Croc fight with that Plasma full beam combo, but unable to get that spike suit. And so that's going to be somewhere in the 5 to 6 second loss, not being able to execute the spark all the way across X-Ray. will make the movement a little bit less stressful, not having to worry about blowing that spike suit. But certainly when you're running up against a runner like Sloaters, you want to be able to get every one of those seconds. And consolidating on that X-ray spark would have been really, really nice for Osse.
Yep. Also, here we have the confirmation Sloaters is officially ahead, going up this lower Norfolk elevator. But Osse's not far behind. He's just a few rooms below him. I also do like that spring ball strat coming out of Croc's room. Over to Croc Speedway. Sloaters is gonna head over to X-Ray. And from there, I guess you can kind of start to see what time he might be running. Because by the time that he picks up X-Ray, you can count on Sloaters being at G4 5 minutes later.
Yeah, and now Osse coming up through that business center elevator. Looks like almost exactly a 1 minute difference between our runners now, with Sloaters being in the lead.
Yeah, so Osse is running a really, really good time in comparison to his PB. I'm pretty sure he might be like 40 to 50 seconds ahead.
Yeah, I would say certainly squarely within that 1:17 window, whereas Sloaters, at least earlier, confirmed that he was ahead of his PB, which would put him somewhere in the mid to low 1:16 range. So some incredible stuff here from both of our runners today.
So for sure, give these runners a follow for these PB paces again. Osse's not that far behind.
No, not at all. Not quite enough to have a baby skip play into things here, but certainly, closing that gap even further, if that were to happen, would put a lot of pressure on Sloaters throughout Turian here. So we still have somewhat of a race here, even though, regardless, both of our runners are putting on quite a show.
Honestly, I'm just glad, and I'm going to applaud them both for going for reverse flunky. At least they go for it.
Yeah, really close there for Osse. Just a couple frames away, a couple pixels away from getting that spring ball strat to start off for an attempt of that reverse slinky. Little high five from our runners here through their blue Brinstar cleanup. Osse grabbing the E-tank in the ceiling. Sloaters charging a spark, storing it on the elevator where that shine spark timer does not run down, and we'll be using it to get across the old Mother Brain room here for one of these final item pickups. See how Sloaters handles the climb supers here. No problem whatsoever. Freezing those enemies and getting across to this final super missile pack. Just one item left to collect for Sloaters out of these 100. and then he'll be making his way over to the G4, and we'll get a really good sense of what that final time is going to look like.
Yep, there's those dental plan missiles. And at the end of each run, we do still have to wait for that verification at the end of the credits to see that 100% completion. Because otherwise, of course, the run will not count.
Yeah, that's right. I'd be pretty surprised to see anything like that. These runners know these routes so well, and I suspect that it's really comfortable to pick up all 100 of those. But certainly anything can happen. We see Sloaters now approaching a sub 110 time to G4. This is a really, really nice time. 109.30 entry.
Yeah, Sloaters could very well be about like 20 seconds ahead still. Depending if he runs another 6 minute and 50-second Torian. Or split, at least, Torian split.
So what can we expect here, Sephi? With this super count, do you expect a really fast attempt here on Turian, no grouping strats whatsoever?
Yeah, for both runners, I can honestly say it wouldn't make sense to group any of them. Usually having like 15, at least for me, I feel really confident in just running through all of them and just supering them as I go. Although often if I feel like I'm below 10, then I might want to group. But I still don't really feel the need to, only because honestly you have the missiles to... Oh, nice mock ball. You have the missiles to still make it through the mother brain fight, so soft locking is really never a concern.
That's right. Really nice job there from Sloaters. That room 3 was just about picture perfect, getting not only the fastest kills in those Metroids, but that beautiful spring ball strat. Not grouping in any of those rooms. Still a nice, healthy super count, and now we'll see how Sloaters can handle this baby skip. Meanwhile, on the left side of your screen, Osse entering the G4, about 65 seconds behind Sloaters. So still a pretty tight race. Certainly would get a lot tighter if baby skip went one way or another for Sloaters and Osse. So we'll just have to see how this goes.
Well, that was really good. Sloaters up, making it through. It's also good to see Osse going for those really quick Metroid room strats. Because again, at least he feels confident in going for them, and so that he can do them is without a doubt.
Yeah, absolutely. Little hiccup for Sloaters going through that first Zebetite, but then managing to pull up that spring ball Zeb skip without any issue. Going to damage down just a little bit in expectation of that stand-up glitch, and we'll go ahead for those 20 fully charged beam shots to take out the second phase of Mother Brain 2.
Really nice job, Osse. Also claiming the Metroid skip.
Yeah, nice to see both of our runners get through that. Osse will look to take an extra jump or so just to guarantee not getting grabbed by the baby. You know, you're this far ahead of PB pace at this point. The last thing you want to do is spend that 30 seconds waiting for that baby to drain your health.
And yeah, the stand-up glitch is just it's just something you can get when you have upwards of 701 energy or more, or pretty much 7 E-tanks and 1 energy on your upper left-hand corner. And you can pretty much break out of the that forced ground that Mother Brain, you know, kind of tells Samus to just kind of sit in that corner. And deal the damage with your fully charged beam throughout that entire cutscene. Looks like Sloaters is having a pretty good stand-up there.
Yeah, it looks really clean. All those onion rings connected on that baby. Maybe just missing one shot in there or two.
Just give you a little bit of a scare, but it's cool.
Yeah.
Not the biggest deal, because pretty sure you can just hold select through that when that does happen, and it gets you out of there. And yeah, this is PB pace for Sloaters. That was a really good blue bomber there. Getting the down grab so that you're not suspended in the air too long.
And Sloater's confirming in the chat, cleanest blue bomber strat that he has ever had.
Yeah, that looked incredibly tight. Like, if he missed that down grab, he would have lost all that time.
Mm-hmm.
So thankfully he landed it.
Nice final spark up the shaft. Handling these tight ledge grabs through Parlor, which can be a really tricky room right before the end of the run. Getting trolled around by the steam just a little bit, but just about to touch down at this ship.
And yeah, good game for Sloaters. With an incredible PB and race time of 1 hour, 16 minutes and 27 seconds on the SRL. But his official PB time is 1:16:25 as shown on screen. And it makes sense for Sloaters to split on his timer before hitting enter on the .done, honestly, because for him, he already secured the win and he wants an accurate PB time to go off of. And I'm almost certain that he's more than satisfied with this.
Yeah, and as they were going into G4, just slightly more than a minute apart, both runners having a really, really nice Turian. And this is going to be a huge PB for Osse in this mid-117 time. GG's to Osse, touching down with an official SRL time that is 2 minutes and 11 seconds faster than their SRL previous PB. 1:17:42, finishing in second place for this race. GG's to both runners.
Yeah, really good, strong times. Osse nearly PB'd by a minute too, so that's incredibly telling. What a great race, really.
All right, we've got Sloaters joining us here on commentary. Sloaters, GG on that PB. Nice job.
Hey guys, thank you.
Yeah, stellar run, dude. I mean, how's it feel? You PB'd.
Great, man. Like, was not. I mean, I've kind of been due for a PB for a while with this. I had two like pretty similar paces to this in like the last couple weeks that both died in Torian. So it's like I feel like I've just been waiting for like one like this, and finally happened. It's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I know that you mentioned. I think as soon as I could tell when you grabbed gravity that you were probably on like the on the craziest pace that you've been on, like for now. Like I don't know if you felt really that there's really much more that you can do given you like your strats and the time that you've put into Hundo recently. But either way, it was a really clean movement.
Yeah, thanks. I've said before, like, I want to get a 115. That's sort of like my current goal. But I don't think I'm really going to be able to get it until I actually like sit down and like update my strats that I've been using since like, a year ago when I got my first 116. So, for now, just like raising up the skill floor and like getting these consistent, 116, 117 paces. It's definitely setting me up to push it down later on when I have time to learn all the new stuff.
Oh, absolutely. Really, really good stuff today, Sloaters. And also an incredible race from Osse101, also joining us here live in the air. Osse, GG's on that huge PB. How do you feel about that run?
GG and thanks.
Gee.
So I'm sort of like more due for a PB because I haven't been doing like full runs. Like coming into this tournament, I haven't done much 100%. Like I just learned the basic route for multicat and then put it away until this tournament started up. So this is my still early runs in the route. But I was grinding all day for this 117, and I finally got it. So really happy about that.
That's a really strong PB.
Yeah, GG's to both runners. Just want to confirm we've got that 100% item collection for both of you. So congrats on having all of those items collected and actually confirming those big PBs for both of you.
Did you just when you came back into running Hundo Osse, that's when you picked up the late grapple then, right?
I started on early grapple, and then after about a week, I switched. I just figured all the tricks, so why not switch?
Yeah, that does make sense. I mean, being that you're a rando runner too, like really good at those, you have the tech for it, so
Yeah,
it makes sense to kind of buckle down to consistency.
Except for the croc spike suit, that is impossible.
Oh right, just spike suits with spring ball is definitely black magic.
Everything else going really smoothly for you, and that shows in that near 1 minute PB there, Osse. As for you, Sloaters, you've got a big match coming up in the semifinals. You're going to be up against Zost 1v1 in 100%. Do you have any specific plans? Anything that you can share how you're thinking about that matchup?
Yeah, I think my plan is just going to be to drop out, just leave the tournament on a high note, getting double PBs on the restream with Osse and just not even showing my face against Zost. Yeah, obviously he's one of the favorites to win the whole thing. I don't expect to beat him at all unless he has a really, really poor run and I like run a PB again basically. So probably not gonna practice too hard. I'll try to stay fresh at least, so I don't embarrass myself or anything. But yeah, that's gonna be my approach.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? Even regardless of the outcome, you could have a god run, get that 115, and I'm sure we'll see another great show for you.
I think as tournament organizer, if you are able to get the reverse slinky like you always do, Sloaters, that should automatically just give you the win. So how about finding that out?
Good change rules. I have the power.
Exactly. But still, what I mean, I don't know if you have words for each other, Osse and Sloaters, but still, like, you guys can just close this out if you want, or any other thoughts that you might have.
I'll just say I'm really glad I had an opportunity to race with Osse. I don't think we've had like an official tournament race together yet. So getting to do this one and both of us getting a PB is pretty sweet. Obviously, he's really good at SMZ3, and he's made a lot of huge strides in this game, especially with RBO getting the only other sub-hour time, and just the times in general he's been putting up. It's been really cool to watch his progress. So yeah, really glad we got to do this, and thank you guys for doing the commentary too. I was listening the whole time and it was fantastic, so thanks again.
Our pleasure, Sloaters. Osse, any last thoughts?
Yeah. So coming into this, I guess Sloaters was kind of heavily favored, but I'm happy that I did keep it within a minute, or almost. I kept it kind of close, but we did get the double PB, which is kind of the best of the realistic outcomes. So it was a good race, and thanks for the commentary and restream.
Yeah, congrats to you both again. Make sure to give the runners a follow, Osse101 and sloaters27. Names you should never ever forget. Thank you, Prof, for doing commentary with me. If you want to close this out as well, as you let us in.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Sephi. It was a blast commentating with you. Want to thank our runners, Sloaters and Osse. You put on a great show for us today. We're looking forward to more good things from both of you in the future in Super Metroid and beyond. So with that, thanks to everyone in chat. Thank you to SpeedGaming for hosting us. We'll remind everyone to stay tuned to that schedule. We've got some really hype semifinals matches coming up in the next week or so for you. And thanks to everyone once more. We will see you all next mission.